Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer. And today with me, I have a very special guest. She's been on my summit before. I've had the opportunity to work with her in a multitude of ways, and I've had conversations. She's amazing. She talks to people that actually are very close and dear to my heart. As far as the fact that I myself have ADHD. So without further ado, Karen, welcome to the show. Our audience members, we have Karen Fasulo here. And Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself, your passion, and how you got started doing what you do. And then I have a whole bunch of questions for you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me and having me here with you. It is such a pleasure to be able to speak to your audience about one thing that's so near and dear to my heart. So, my name is Karen Anphisulo. I am a parenting, mindset, and relationship coach and a certified breathwork instructor. I specify I specifically speak to parents who have kids who are neurodiverse. So that would be ADHD, autism, learning disabilities. My daughter was diagnosed when she was 11 years old with autism. And as a mom, as a single mom, I knew exactly what how she was feeling at that time, how she was scared, but nobody really understood me and what I was feeling at that time and how scared I was, the guilt, the shame, the confusion. There really wasn't a lot of people that I could turn to that could say anything other than just, oh, yeah, she'll be fine. So, this is why all these years later, I really am interested. I love to help and support parents who are in that stage that I was in because throughout all of the experiences that I've had with my daughter, she is now very happy. She is in her post grad at college. When we were told at 11 that basically she wouldn't even graduate high school. So we've done a lot of work, and it was through all those stages that I love to share with the parents and give them hope that their lives can be happy.
Yeah, oftentimes people don't realize this. It's like we don't sign up necessarily for the child that we get and the journey that we take with them. And of course, it's a privilege and an honor to have that adventure together.
Mm.
But as you go through it, sometimes if you're anything other than the quote unquote normal mainstream thing, which I don't even know what that really means, there is not a whole lot of support and answers that are readily available to you, and you have to go digging for them. So I'm really glad that you have taken time out of your busy schedule to be here and offer your expertise and your experiences with us. And I know that for myself as a recipient, being, as you said, a neurodivert, I process things differently. So there is this source of frustration of why the world works differently than the way I understand it. And it can affect people on a multitude of ways in connecting and their personal confidence, things like that. So, Karen, this being such an important topic because the number is on the rise and we are constantly recognizing that there's more than what we typically thought could be considered not normal or divert, basically. What are the challenges that you typically hear people coming in to seek your help with?
Probably the biggest challenge that I hear is that the parents don't know how to communicate or relate to their child.
Mhm.
And it's exactly from the same reason that you just touched on, because a neurodiverse mind processes information differently. And as a parent, so when our child doesn't understand, we don't understand our child, that scares us. And we want to fix them, right? Because of course that they're our child. We want them to be able to fit in. A lot of the times, especially where the diagnosis falls, how old they are, they may have been struggling for quite some time. So your child may have self-esteem issues. They may feel really bad about themselves. My daughter felt really bad about herself. She thought she was stupid and that nobody liked her. So battling that of course, empathy comes and you just want to protect them. So the first thing is, well, you need to act like this, and then people will like you. Or if you just tried harder, if you concentrated more, then
Hmm.
you would do better in school. And so this is just our natural instinct thinking from a neurotypical way of thinking. This is what we need to do. So then the child receives that and thinks, well, okay, I'm not. So again, solidifying that I'm not good enough and I need to try harder. So then they do that, but it's frustrating because they don't understand. They're doing the best that they can with what they have. So the first thing that we need to do that we talk about is acceptance. Is accepting your child for just who they are, no matter what, and not trying to change them. We often try to have our neurotypical children fit into our, or neurodiverse children fit into our neurotypical world, when in fact they just can't. And they will try so hard to please you, but they just cannot do that. So how can we make our world match them? And that's the biggest challenge that parents will face, and it's the first thing that we really start to work on.
And that's so foundational, what you just mentioned, because as you said, trying to fix them, but there's nothing broken there. They're just,
No.
a square peg, and we're trying to put them in a circular hole. It doesn't fit. But the reality is that someplace on that board, there is room for a square peg. And our goal as parents, as supporters, is to guide them and have them help them find that square peg so that they can fit in. And yes, the more you try to shove that into that round hole, it doesn't fit in. And what that does is, on their part, they can't change the processing. So they're like, I'm not, I'm do what I do to me makes perfect sense. I don't understand why the rest of the world this doesn't make sense to. So this creates this internal anxiety and conflict that they can never make the right choice. And then we oftentimes see that anxiety and depression are very comorbid factors, basically, when it comes to people who are not neurotypical. And that comes from the fact that they're trying to fit in, but not where they're designed to fit in. So yes, very important. So Karen, of course, now that they're coming to you, that's a good sign, because that means that they have found a support, a resource that they can latch onto and move forward. But then, of course, there are challenges with making change. So what are the challenges that you typically see people struggle with when they are trying to make the improvements and the changes?
So a lot of it, battle of the wills, right? So we are habitual, human beings are habitual people, right? So depending on how long and the age of the child and of the parents, right? There's damage that has been done. So change is really difficult, and there will be resistance. And parents are often think, well, I don't want to just give in, right, to their behavior. I don't like, they still need to follow rules, they still need to learn how to function. And I was the same way. There was things with Jordan, I was like, okay, but you still need to be able to function in this world, right? You
Mhm.
can't just be running around naked all the time. Like, we know that we need to, wear clothes. Like, so there are certain rules that they need to abide by, as well as respect, right? A lot of times anger issues comes out, and because with autism, they don't understand social cues. So sometimes things that have said make perfect sense to them, but they don't understand the context in which it's being received. So for parents, there's a lot of really looking above and beyond, and understanding, and that's really where the acceptance comes from. So when your child is behaving in a certain way that's not acceptable, you can say to them, like, this is not acceptable behavior. And this is why. So that's actually the most important thing, because if you can explain to them in a reason that they understand why it's not acceptable to behave this way, then progress can be made.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not intentional. Everybody,
Mm-mm.
especially children, are trying to
Ah,
figure out how the world around them works. And they're naturally curious. They're not bothered by making mistakes. We actually kind of imprint that on them that, making mistakes is bad, but actually making mistakes is how we learn about the world. That's how you can speak nowadays because you said the words wrong so many different ways until you could say it the right way.
yeah.
So it's built into children and they just want the understanding and the explanation so that they can be better at dealing with the world and what it has. So wonderful. So in doing so, what are some of the tips and secrets that you find can really make an impact in this bonding experience, in this relationship, and people watching this can actually take into heart and start implementing right away?
Yeah. So number one thing instead of telling them, ask them. So ask them, what do you need from me right now? If you see that they're having trouble, how can I support you? What do
Mm,
you need from me to be able to help you finish, if it's finish a project, if it's to get dressed, to get out the door to go to school, finish your dinner? Like what is it that you need? What is that makes you feel good? What is it that makes you feel bad? Really try to get to know your child more than just like have them, but I'm stumbling on my words, but by asking these questions, so you're asking these questions, but they actually have to think about the answers. So you're helping them get to know themselves. Because once they understand how their brain processes information, what their needs are, how they can be happy, what makes them upset, they know then understand their own triggers and then they can be able to be more accepting of themselves. My daughter, there's certain foods that she just cannot eat. She cannot eat breakfast foods. I can make her sit down at the table and put a bowl of cereal in front of her face and tell her she has to eat it, but she literally will gag because the textures of milk and something hard and crunchy just throws her right off. She cannot do it. So
mm,
I could sit there and choose to battle her and make her eat cereal, or if she wants to make a ham sandwich for breakfast, who cares? Half the time she eats soup. Who cares? She is eating something in her tummy that is nutritious first thing in the morning, right? Pick your battles. Figure out what's really, really important. Number two is teaching your child how to regulate their own emotions.
mm,
And this has a lot to do with something else that I'm certified in, which is breath work. Breath work is so important, especially for teaching ourselves. So if we're getting overwhelmed and full of anxiety and stressed out with how things are going in the home, by simply doing some box breathing or even just your belly breaths, which is slowly breathing in through your nose, deep down into your belly, into your tummy, like deep into your lungs, and slowly releasing. If you can hold your breath in the middle there, even better. But doing that at least 3 times will reset your nervous system and you will feel a sense of calm. It is magic. But it's science. And then also by teaching your child this, so when they are starting to feel anxious, when you can see that they're starting to feel and they're really getting upset, they're really getting frustrated, just by doing saying okay, and this was a cue for my daughter as well, which really helped her, was when she was starting to get into that mood and she didn't necessarily recognize it at first. I could say, you know what, maybe you should do some belly breaths, and that would trigger her. Oh yeah, if I do this, then I'll feel better.
mm.
And they want to, right? They don't want to feel the way that they're feeling. They're just frustrated and getting taking over because they have trouble. Autism has trouble regulating their own emotions.
Right.
So breath work is definitely a big thing. Something else that I would always recommend is some type of physical exercise. So whether it be whatever your child likes, keep trying different things. My goodness, Jordan was in everything, everything, every sport she wanted to try, we tried until she finally found karate. And karate was something that was so good for her because it's individual, but yet she's in a big group of people.
Right.
So she's able to be in a social situation, but yet only focusing on herself, and it was at her own pace. Also, physical exercise, and a lot of the times, if she was having a bad day, she got to go and punch the pads, right? So she got that frustration and that anger out of her body, which is a lot of the times what we need. A lot of the times, especially neurodiverse, they have that sensory going on in their body. It's a physical sensation that they feel. Jordan would tell me all the times that it's like the skin is crawling on her legs. The little pins and needles and electrodes that's going through her body is a physical thing that they feel. So she needed to move, and she needed to like reset. So even if you are like what we call squeeze your lemons, right? Squeeze all, crunch all your muscles as hard as possible and then release. And by repeating that for a couple of times over, you will then help to reset your nervous system. So these are just some simple things. And then the last thing that I always suggest is journaling. Journaling, I am a huge fan of journaling for a parent. My goodness, being able to get that out of your head and onto paper, all those feelings that you're feeling, because as a parent, there's so many feelings that you're feeling. This focus is on your child, but you need to be good with you in order to be able to support your child. So, what is that self love looking like for you as a parent? And journaling, you will also be able to identify patterns. So you will see is that there are hormones involved, depending on when your child is, no matter what your child is. Hormones are developing or continuing to develop. So can you identify cycles? So you know at this certain stage, whether you're male or female, right, there
Mhm.
still is happening, right?
Right.
So, okay, at this stage of the month, I know that things are getting a little bit crazy. So maybe I need to support my child a little bit more during this time, or maybe I need to lay off a
Right.
little bit more at this time, because I can see through my journaling and what's happening in our life that things are going to go crazy right now.
Right.
The
Those
journal is
are
also
really,
really, sorry.
I was just going to say, those are really, really important points. And I just want to point out to our audience members that like these three tips that you just mentioned, they can be very profound. But one of the key things about making things work is the consistency and the teamwork. So when Karen talks about journaling, please go ahead and do this as a team activity. Like we all sit down, we're going to take 10 minutes to write on our journal. So they're going to see you do it. They can come and partake in the activity sitting next to you. So it's quality time and everything as well. You feel like a team. You're showing them that building habits and consistency is important, and any of those things. So I want to make sure that you guys understand if you're doing like breath work, it's not that we're going to do breath work one time and then now you're fixed, right? So this is something that let's go ahead and instill this in our day-to-day activity, and so that becomes part of your routine, part of things that you do together as a team. So really, really powerful things that Karen just shared. Just want to make sure that you kind of work on it together as a team on a consistent, habitual way to kind of, you mentioned habits are difficult, right? And this is one of those great things that,
Yeah.
yeah, but at the same time, good habits are lifelong. And once you instill them, then you'll have a lifelong benefit. So sorry, I kind of went on there.
No, no, it's so true. And that's the other thing, right? Like routine. Routine is so important, and I get it because I am a spontaneous person, and it's really great for me to go, "Hey, where do we want to go today?" But that totally trips out my Jordan, my she can't handle that. She needs to know right ahead of time because she has her morning schedule. And if she's rushed through that morning schedule, the whole day is thrown off. Right. So she has her evening schedule. If she can't do her evening schedule, literally she cannot fall asleep. And then that throws off a lot of things. So routine, they, especially any child that is ASD, like on the spectrum, they need a routine. They need to know what to expect. And when you can work in that routine, they are more at peace. They're calm, they're happy, they're able to function.
Right.
And then that makes a happy life for everybody.
Right. This is important for even the typical children. That's when you have consistency, when they know what to expect or how the day will unfold, that brings a sense of stability and calmness to them so that they don't have to figure out the next thing that might surprise them, that they can ease into their day and know that they can accomplish what is expected of them and they know what's around the corner. So very, very important to have that routine. We oftentimes as grown-ups are like, oh, another routine. But for children, it is necessary for them to build these things inside their brains. So very important. Thank you.
And life happens, right? So sometimes you have to go out of that routine. Sometimes you have to, right? You're just like, listen, I can't control it. We have to go right now. And so when that happens, it's, as a parent, we need to be patient with our child. So there's, yes, I know, like if we suddenly have to get up and leave the house before Jordan's done her full routine, I'm like, I understand that this is making you anxious. I understand that this is hard for you. How can I help you so that we can get out the door right now, because we're going to be late.
Right.
So if you give them that validation that yes, I understand this is hard for you. Unfortunately, we do need to do this, and how can we help all together to help get you through there? That is really crucial as well.
Now, Karen, I had one other question, which is the age group that you're talking about. Is there a specific age group that you are referring to, or is it something that's more broad?
So it's a little bit more broad, I would think. So a lot of the times, my experience is with the teenage years. And so that is really, so when I talk a lot of it, those are the strategies that would really work with the teenage years. However, if I had, really realized and received, obviously Jordan was born autistic. I just didn't find out till she was 11. And now that I think back, yes, I could see all of everything pointing to that now since she was born. So if I had started a lot of these strategies when she was little, then a lot of the other struggles that we had in her teenage years would not have happened.
Right. So, and that's what I wanted to point out to that when we are talking about stepping in to support our kids, depending on the age group, support means different things. So for the younger children, it's more of how can I support you so we can get out the door, like you said, right? But then for the older kids that understand some of these basic functions or some of the basic things that's expected of them, if they don't meet it, it's not so much of what can I do for you, but as in, let's sit down and see what could you do differently so that next time this would happen, or what do you think went wrong so that we can address that. So that kind of starts instilling this problem solving and reflection for the child, so that it's not always us picking up pieces after them, but also getting them to become problem solvers in their own lives and giving them the tools to problem solve with. Thank you for mentioning things in a way that you did that kind of jotted my memory to ask that. Awesome. So Karen, how can people find out more about you and what you do so that they can connect with you?
Well, so my website, which is karenannfasulo.com. There's contact information on there. You can email me directly. I'm on Facebook. Again, Karen Anne Fasulo, and Anne has an E. That's the best way for you to reach out and find me.
Okay, awesome. And I will put all of that information in the description box of the video as well. So audience members, please go ahead and make sure you click on that, check the links there and take advantage of it. These gifts, these resources are there for you to get additional support. And one of the things that I always encourage for parents to do is show your children how to ask for support, show them how to connect to other people. That means that how you look for support and reach out becomes important because you're teaching that to your kids. So we have many experts. If you haven't already done so, click subscribe in the on the box or wherever it is. so that you get the latest updates on all the experts that come in, share their expertise, share their gifts and contact information with you, and for you to connect and have a network of support that you can always go to. Karen, thank you so much for being here and sharing of your expertise and your wealth of knowledge. Any parting words of wisdom before we finish our session today?
Just be, you know what? Be kind to yourself. Love yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to your kids. It's not easy, right? It's really not easy. And you're doing a lot better than probably what you give yourself credit for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That recognition is very important. Thank you guys for all that you do, audience members, parents out there. We appreciate you. Thank you, Karen, for being here. And until another episode, see you. Cheers.